All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I've been excited about this particular section of the RCON3 for quite some time. I want to mention first and foremost that it has been very much a cooperative effort. There have been a lot of people involved, not the least of which is Paul Hubert and Jim Rondinelli from Immersion Networks, and they'll come up on stage in a few minutes and join me. Also, I really have to give a big shout out to Keivan Kazuminajan and Kent Shikama. I think Kent is probably still getting some sleep. The three of us have not slept very much in the last few days. And Mike Stay, who also contributed significantly to what you're about to see. So what we're going to be demoing is an app called RSong, and it brings together several different ideas. Mike was kind enough to kind of set this up in the sense that he talked about how the vision of RChain, which is again very much a collaborative vision, is pushing the envelope on every front. And RSong continues in that tradition. And so I want to talk a little bit about that push and that drive, and the why of it. So in order to understand this in context, I just want to remind us of what we promised ourselves. So in the membership meeting of October 24th, 2017, what we promised was that RChain would provide Visa-level transaction rates and Facebook data volumes. And RSong is a clear step, a milestone towards that goal. I do want to say that it's a milestone. We're not all the way there yet. I think our experience has been that there's a lot of rough edges on the node at this point. But we've had a lot of fun rounding and smoothing a lot of those edges over the last few days in order to deliver an experience for you today. So what is RSong? It's a pretty simple application with a very unusual idea given existing blockchain architectures. So in order to put this in context, I'd like you to think back to May of 2017, so about a year and a bit ago, when CryptoKitties was clogging the Ethereum network, right? And think about the data assets associated with CryptoKitties, right? And think about the value of those avatars to each one of you in this room today. So the RSong idea is, what if we were to put audio data directly on chain? What if we could put songs directly on chain? That would test our claims about Visa-level transaction rates and Facebook data volumes, right? That would be a very significant test of that idea, and it's very much in alignment with the way we've envisioned this from the beginning. Yes, this is a community full of propeller heads and geeks and nerds, but it's also full of people who just want the technology to work. And they need different kinds of proxies or different ways of monitoring the progress of the technology. And we have always made it our #1 goal that the way to monitor the progress of the technology is through the applications that are being delivered. So we believe that RSong gives you a way to experience and understand what's being delivered. So the idea is very simple. The world is divided into two kinds of players. One is a player of instruments, and another is a player like you might find on an iOS device or an Android device. So the artist or player or producer of audio content wants to distribute their work out to fans. And not just artists, it could be rights holders. So anyone who has the right to audio content may want to distribute that audio content out to fans. So there's a cloud service that will take that content and deliver it directly onto chain. So it gets encoded and then put onto the chain. And then there's a player that has the ability to retrieve that audio content, which talks to a proxy, which is talking to the chain to retrieve that data, and do some other things as well. So we'll talk a little bit about those other things, but notice even this very simple boiled down diagram begins to stress what's important about a blockchain architecture like this. The blockchain does not exist in isolation and cannot exist in isolation. It has to be able to integrate with applications all throughout the world, right? And we see it with this right in our faces, even with this very, very simple application. Now, there's another piece to this that has to do with one of the things that the blockchain is good for. And that is being able to distribute value back to value providers. So if Morty plays something on the RSong player, what you'll see in just a little bit is that there's a tiny little glitch at the beginning, but ignore that for a moment. If Morty presses play on the RSong player, that actually goes up to a smart contract, which is keeping track of the playbacks of this audio content, and then distributing fractions of that playback count out to the contributors of the audio content. So you have a very direct and clear way to have those people who value the audio content reward those people who have produced it or who have the rights to it. Does that make sense to everyone? Is this clear? Okay, good. So I want to talk a little bit, just to set the stage, why would we put audio data on chain? Why not sequester it away somewhere else and just put links to the audio data on chain? And the first answer is kind of because we can. And it's kind of cool and fun to do that. And the second answer, which is not 100% compelling, but it's still part of a larger story. It begins to help with provenance, right? If you can trace the use of audio data in remixes and mashups and things like that, then you can compensate or reward those kinds of artists fairly, and you can, the amen break guys get rewarded fairly for all the ways in which their work gets incorporated. So it's part of a provenance solution. And I'm just trying to plant a seed with this image because there's a much larger scope and scale here that I want to hint at in just a moment. And the other is community ownership of data, right? So it turns out that with this idea of rent that Mike set up so nicely, What we're really saying is that communities have to decide when data is valued enough to be supported and stick around, right? And that again, is sort of, I believe, fits within everything that we've been talking about when we talk about RChain, the cooperative, as well as RChain, the platform. So about provenance. What is really going on here and why we begin with things like media, entertainment, and the arts is because it's sort of the lowest risk entry into the marketplace. Basically, nobody dies if you can't download a song, right? So if our server crashes during the demo, well, hopefully nobody dies here. But people do die if a pallet of drugs is delivered to the wrong place at the wrong time. And I just want to point out, and as I think a lot of the people here in this room have known explicitly, that one of the most important applications of the blockchain is supply chain management. And if you think about the distribution of audio content, it's effectively a supply chain management problem. And one of the things about supply chain management is that it's as much about the provenance of the data as it is about the physical supply, right? You really need to know things about the data and the chain of custody of the data itself, as well as the chain of custody associated with the supply, right? So that's why we begin with an application like this. It sets us up for success. And by the way, there's virtually nothing to distinguish RSong as an application architecture from a photo sharing app. So just let that sink in, right? And then to stress Mike's point, Mike actually did this calculation, sent it in an email to me, and I just cribbed it directly from the email. You know, at Ethereum's cost, right? Even if we were to take 1/10 of the current rates, an ordinary song would be about $1,000 a song, right? And I don't think anybody wants to pay the upfront price for that, right? I think that's not the right model for this kind of data. I think you want to amortize that over time. And some songs, I don't know, Let It Be, are going to have staying power, and the community will discover that it has the will to keep it going. And other songs, I don't know, I've forgotten them, don't have that same kind of staying power. And this is why phlogiston is an n-tuple. As Mike pointed out, bandwidth and memory are a little bit harder to measure, but at least it's a two-tuple in terms of compute and storage. And again, to put it in perspective, right? Imagine if AWS had only one number that it was using to charge you for its services. That just wouldn't work from a business perspective. And it was exactly that kind of thinking that has gone into the way we think about the cost model for RChain. It's like we have how many years of experience with these kinds of cost models for distributed compute. So it shouldn't be a big surprise that it needs to be componentized in terms of the actual resources. And then an economic model like this, as I've tried to paint the picture, allows the community, makes it feasible for a community to decide collectively what data should remain on chain. And this helps with sensitive data sets that maybe we wouldn't want on chain, right? I mean, you know, people have used various kinds of sort of egregious data that you wouldn't want to have on chain, and if it were immutable, that could be an attack on the chain. For example, child pornography could be used as an attack on the chain, right? Because you put a bunch of that kind of terrible data on the chain, and now everyone who is supporting the chain is in some way potentially complicit in maintaining that. Here, now the community has to decide. There has to be a conscious choice to pay up front, right? And it's a very different model. It also puts us in compliance. It's a piece of the puzzle of being in compliance with things like GDPR, right? So if you want to forget stuff, just don't pay rent. And eventually it rolls off the chain, right? So it's one of the pieces of that particular puzzle. And so now I want to talk about who is delivering this technology. So again, a big shout out to all of the people who are directly involved in the tech. There was a lot of hard work that's gone into the tech, and I'm very appreciative to all those that were involved. At the organizational level, well, we have immersion networks. If you guys want to come up on stage. And there was also Pyrofex. So Mike delivered we found only one bug in your contract. It was awesome. And then Peter Harris from Resonate is going to be about the future of RSong. You want to come up, Peter? And then there's RChain Cooperative. So these are some of the parties that have had to collaborate to give you this experience. And now I'd like to turn it over to you guys to help guide people through that experience.
Well, thanks. So I'm Jim Rondinelli, and this is Paul Hubert. Paul is the founder and kind of guiding spiritual vision of Immersion, and I handle the business side. We are very proud to be in this collaboration with the cooperative on the RSong app. I'm going to start with a couple of threshold things to discuss access to the app and one usage rule for you all to be aware of. So the RSong app is available for Android users today in the Google Play Store. Apple being Apple, if you're an iOS user, it's slightly more complicated. So if you are an iOS user and you haven't received the test flight introduction already, you should receive an invitation to use the app on test flight. If you have not, please find Emily, who is in the back of the room somewhere. She's in the back at this entrance, and fill out the RSong survey. We'll immediately add you to as soon as we're off stage, we'll add you to the whitelist for test flight. You'll receive an invitation to test flight. You'll download the test flight environment, and that will allow you to place the RSong app on your phone. So that's general rules number one for access. Rule number two for access is that RSong is revolutionary for two different reasons. First, we're playing audio from the chain, but we're also presenting immersive audio in a format that people just haven't experienced before. Now, if you want to experience the immersive audio, and we strongly suggest that you do, it's something we're very proud of, it requires the use of wired headphones, because the primitive codecs in wireless headphones actually collapse a lot of the information and audio fidelity. So we have wired headphones here in the facility. We have a few hundred pair that we've actually purchased to distribute to attendees. For those of you using Lightning connectors, there are also adapters. So please make sure, before you evaluate the full RSong experience, give yourself the benefit of listening to the immersive content as well. Use a wired pair of headphones. And again, lightning adapters are also in the house with the people with the headphones if you need one of those for the headphones that we've provided. So again, generally 2 big points of differentiation in the RSong app. First, the audio that is presented here is audio that is housed on the chain. And then second, we have the immersive audio experience, which you'll see at the bottom of the app on the transport buttons. So if we go to this screen capture of the RSong app, pretty simple standard transport buttons, shuffle and song repeat at the bottom. The ability to toggle between stereo and an immersive mix. An immersive mix that will provide a listening experience that you haven't encountered before, again, that we're really proud of. And then the hamburger with the music note at the top right allows you to access the other songs in the library for the demonstration. Pretty simple stuff. Now, when we talk about immersive content, I just want to hit a couple of points as I transition over to Paul. First, we can create an immersive experience from any legacy master. So it can be a mono master from the 50s, it can be a contemporary stereo master, but the most compelling experience, and what we did for these demos, is we went back to multi-track inputs and created specific immersive audio mixes using our tool set, which we intend to provide to users on a no-cost basis, similar to the way the gaming platforms like Unity and Unreal work today. So that's, in essence, our approach. Put the content or the tools in the hands of the creators, let people prolifically create content, and if there's some point of value created, then it's something that we can find a way to share and downstream. With that, let me hand off to Paul, our founder and the creator of the immersive format and these tool sets, and I'll let him walk you through exactly what we've done.
All right, thanks, Jim. So I'm going to show you a couple shots. So this is our labs in Redmond, and this is what we look at as the future of a mixing console. It's actually a very high resolution, very accurate touch surface that you can move things around in a way you haven't been able to do anything before. You have faders and things like that for transitioning from kind of the old way things worked. But now you have the ability to grab an object and move it anywhere you want visually. We have, if you look over here on the right side of the screen, there's an elevation slider. So you can actually change the angle where audio comes at you. You can also move it around person any way you want. So it can be as far away as you want. You can put it very close, and the model works on headphones, and probably by next time we do RCON3, we'll be listening to immersive sound system for everybody. So the same thing here will translate to an audience as well. So there's a live application, there's also, this is all in a recording studio application. So this was using multi-tracks from a session where we can move every track around individually, and that's what you're gonna hear in some of these immersive mixes. And this is just a video recording of the screen in action on something. So there should be some audio coming up. Now you're not going to hear immersive audio out of these speakers, but when you listen to it on headphones. So as you can see, we can record the dot, move it around. If you see the triangle in the middle, that is basically the listening position. So here's a full song that's mixed in it, and you can see what we do. There's the guitars in the blue, so each track is represented by a different color or a different object, and we can automate any movement we want. We can move things up, we can move them down, we can move them around you, but you'll hear this song on one of the things. This is one from the California Guitar Trio, and you can listen to the old stereo version, or you can listen to the immersive version, and it's on the same set of headphones you already own. And you're kind of missing it in this, but I want you to look at what's these little movements and nuances that are happening in this mix. When you listen to it, you can at least visualize what this is. Now, this tool set can also drive any video engine. So this can drive 3D position in a 3D game engine. It could be driven by a 3D game engine. So I could take 3D game engine and import that information into this and drive the audio from the position of other objects. So I can't wait for you guys to hear that in the headphones, but so the invites just went out for all the iOS people, Android people. Go ahead and download. Do you want to?
Maybe just let me take one last point.
You okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to put this back into the context of RChain and the co-op. And going back to Greg's discussion, and why we're excited about this, or to Greg's discussion about the supply chain. Right now, in the media world, there are multiple distributed supply chains that are grossly inefficient, expensive, and don't do a very good job of tracking the provenance and ownership of these works. By putting the works directly on the chain, we have the opportunity now to not only make media distribution infinitely more efficient, but most importantly, to make sure that the participants and the people who made the investment in those works in the first place, the rights holders, the musicians, the composers, all have the opportunity to track the provenance of the work throughout the entire ecosystem. And that's why we think this is important. That's why we're happy to be here. So thank you very much.
Bravo, thank you. Just gonna switch it up here. Now, you may be wondering, like, so does that mean that RChain becomes an audio company? No. RChain remains fully committed to delivering the platform. But we do have a partner. So one of the reflective portfolio companies is Resonate. And Peter Harris is the CEO of Resonate. And we're going to be transitioning this cool technology that we've developed over into Resonate. And so if you want to talk a little bit about Resonate and your vision for that, that would be great.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Greg, Jim, Paul. I'm practically speechless. It's going to be hard to pull some words out at the moment because of what this means. I think Greg really laid it out earlier in terms of talking about provenance. Jim touched on it very, very briefly. The music industry is a mess. It's not really anybody's fault. The technology, the systems, the methods that the industry is using evolved from the piano roll. It's really quite literally true that the first tracking of music royalties happened because of a technology that's long gone, that nobody remembers, but the systems that are in place to support the existing industry are all based on this dead technology. And so for the first time, we're looking at the possibility of being able to move the tracking and provenance and all of this into a digital era, because the rest of the industry's moved to digital. The shift into streaming has been monstrous in the last few years. The decline of physical-based delivery mechanisms, the decline of download-based delivery mechanisms has all shifted dramatically to streaming. And yet, the industry is still using systems and methodologies and techniques based on the player piano roll. And so, for the first time with putting audio on chain, we have the opportunity to go fully digital from beginning to end. So I'll be talking more about these ideas this afternoon. I think it's at 2:45, I believe, track 3. We'd love to see you there, and we'll explore the topic in more depth.
Thank you, Peter.
And once again, thank you, Greg, for making this happen. The last 2 days, as I've been diving deep into the execution and rollout and how this is, the impact that this is going to have not only on Resonate and the artists that we're working with, it's just tremendous. And there's so much of a backstory on this that I hope someday when the book is written, we will see really how close the world came to losing this opportunity. But I owe you a great, great debt of gratitude for making it happen.
It's the co-op, right? The co-op has made this possible. It's Thank you. So I have just one other quick point to close out this this section. So hopefully, there we go. So another promise that we've made the community, and as a part of the vision of the cooperative, is that the co-op is focusing on rebooting the major coordination technologies. And you know, a lot of times, you know, I've been up on stage in a situation like this and talking about, you know, the sort of the imminent drivers for why we might want to reboot our coordination technology. But I also want to look at it from the joyful perspective as well. One of the things that is just utterly magical about music is that music is a coordination technology. One of the reasons we go to see a good music show is because it's astounding to watch the kind of telepathic connection that happens when the band is in the groove or the symphony orchestra has the spirit of music has descended, right? It's our chance to have a literally embodied experience of harmony. What it's like to be in harmony, to be in tune, to be in time. I think there's been, It's no accident that with every one of, Steve called our chain a movement, right? It's no accident that with every one of these real movements, there has been a corresponding shift in our engagement and relationship to music, right? I mean, just think of the summer of love, right? And so with RSong and Resonate, and with our partners, Immersion Networks and Pyrofx, what we're doing is literally taking this to a new dimension. And so with that, I'd like to leave you some time to listen. 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 Thank you.